Right. Welcome to the podcast, Formless Podcast number 17. I'm Dustin and joined here again today with Tyler the Superhuman.
Hello.
What did we do? 2 weeks ago now, the tournament?
Yeah, it was, May 21st. So
May 21st.
last week.
Last weekend?
Yeah, May
Man,
21st.
time has really gone
Yeah.
for me this month has been zipping by. It's already the 30th
30th
today?
today is the 30th, May
Jeez.
30th.
So you went to the tournament. I didn't go. We can get into that later, why I didn't go. How was it? How was the experience?
Yeah, so it wasn't my first...
It's like your second or third, right?
Oh, if more than that, it's probably my sixth or seventh that I've gone to. But, just a little backstory. We have up here, the same individual it's an individual who runs a karate school in the area. He puts on 3 tournaments, a
you
year.
can shout out to him.
Yeah, Scott Halsey puts, thanks Scott. He does 3 tournaments a year, usually one in January, one in May, and one in, I believe it's September or October. I want to say September.
Okay.
But he does 3 tournaments a year, and he draws people from all over. He puts on a very quality tournament, in good locations. And so I'd been to 6 or 7 of his tournaments locally. I haven't done tournaments outside of his tournaments. Like, I've never done a karate tournament, out of town. Like, I've only done his, so certain level of familiarity with that. But so I went. The last couple times I've gone, once I hit red belt in Wu Ying Dao, I did. You're eligible to be a judge.
Okay.
And so I think it was 2 or 3 tournaments ago was when I was the red belt, and I, Sensei Court had me start judging. And so, right before the tournament starts, they have all the people who are going to be judges circle up, and Scott Halsey, he has everyone circle around him in kind of a horseshoe, and he goes through all the rules, and this is what constitutes a point, and this is not, that you can't allow this, and it's a lot to remember, and if you've been doing martial arts and these tournaments for years, it's second nature. But for me, it's like, still something I'm easing my way into.
Yeah.
So I'm still having to absorb a lot of the information. And we got the judge's briefing, and then I got assigned to as an assistant judge in the the 12 and 13-year-old category. Okay. So it's the 12 and 13 beginner, intermediate, and advanced category. And so I was one of the assistant judges, and the head judge so I was in ring number 5 or 6, I want to say it was 6. And the head judge of ring number 6 was another martial arts instructor that has a dojo here locally. He was very cool.
Was that Bernie?
Bernie Kelly.
Okay.
Yeah, Bernie Kelly.
He has the school in Cottonwood.
Cottonwood, yeah. Kelly's Martial Arts, I think it was.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and he was super cool that... so he was the head judge, and...
then there's 5?
No, there's 3. There's 3 per ring, so 3. So I was in ring number 6. And Bernie Kelly was the head judge. When you're doing the judges briefing, they at the beginning, Scott Halsey had he had us all circle up, and he tries to make it kind of like a he wants to be diversify. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Diversify. So for each ring, so he does the briefing, and then for each ring he'll send out 3 people, but he tries to get 3 people per ring that are not from the same dojo.
That way you don't get any bias.
Yeah, there's no
favor.
Yeah, all 3 judges are from separate dojos.
Schools.
Yeah, schools.
Okay.
And so so Bernie Kelly was assigned there. I was assigned there, and then the third guy was a gentleman named Gunner that I don't know his last name, But at the tournament in January, I went to the same tournament in January that Scott Halsey puts on.
Mm-hmm.
I did 2 matches in the black belt category. I lost my first match to a gentleman, because he was better. The second match, I inadvertently gave my opponent a bloody nose in our match, so I was disqualified from the tournament. If you draw blood, at least in Scott Halsey's tournaments, and I think a lot of these karate tournaments, if you draw blood, you are automatically disqualified from the tournament. And so my first match as a black belt in the black belt category, I lost my first match. My second match, I got disqualified because I gave a guy a bloody nose, and it just happens, right? I didn't mean to.
You kind of crashed into each other, right?
Yeah, we did a clash, and everything was swinging, and he was coming at me, and I was coming at him, and I got him good on the nose. So I got disqualified. That was in January. Fast forward to this tournament, I get assigned to the same ring with Gunner, who was the guy that I gave the bloody nose to in January.
Did he remember?
Oh, he remembered me. So it was Bernie Kelly, Gunner, and me. And so me and Gunner just right off the bat, and after the tournament in January, we got our picture together. Everything was good. I apologized many times. I apologized again at this last tournament.
Yeah.
Everything was just fine. He was like, dude, it happens. And I was like, it does. So we got along, and but we had a good time judging, Bernie and Gunner and I, and we judged katas, and we judged the sparring.
You did just about everything.
Yeah, we judged.
They do like katas, they do weapons forms.
We didn't judge the weapons.
Okay.
They did. We were judges for you get all the people. So like the first group we were assigned was the 12 and 13-year-olds, the beginner, intermediate, and advanced, and we divided them up, and we said, okay, you've been doing martial arts for 1 year or less. Okay, you're in the beginners. Okay, you guys have been doing martial arts for 1 to 2 years. Now you're intermediate. 2 years and above, you are advanced. But as long as you're not a red and brown, then you would be in the red and brown belt category. So so we judged out of those people that were there, whoever wanted to do kata, we judged the katas. And then we went right into sparring, and we had some really good sparring matches. Kata and Wu Yin Gao, katas, that's not something that we really focus on. We
don't.
Explain.
Yeah. Some martial arts do what they call katas or forms, and there's lots of moves that they have to memorize, and it's almost like an interpretive dance. I look at it that way, and there's a lot of tradition there. Some people, and no disrespect, some people really like it, and it's part of their style and what they do, and it's how they memorize and show different maneuvers or techniques. We don't do that. The whole name of the style that we train, Wu Yin Gao, means literally no form way, and so we do away with that. And then our school, when you get to green belt, which is about halfway, you make up your own form, your own kata, to show what Wu Yin Gao means to you, basically. And then when you get to when you take your black belt test, you do another one that you've made up.
You could either polish the one.
Yeah, you could polish the one you did at green belt, or you can make up a whole new one. I personally hated them up until my black belt test. My green belt, I almost I put it off as long as I could, and I did not like that part.
Was just not for you.
No, it just wasn't. Well, and doing martial arts for so long and not having to do them, I drug my feet, and not being versed in that not knowing how. It would be kind of like I don't know. It was just like doing something I didn't feel natural.
Right.
You know. So I kind of drug my feet with it, and then when I got to my black belt, I was almost embarrassed looking back on my green belt test. I was not embarrassed. That's just kind of disappointed that I didn't put more effort into it. I was just doing, you
were going through the motions.
I was going through the motions. I did enough to pass the test. And that was the wrong attitude. Like I should have been more on it, I should have been more enthusiastic about it. Anyway, so when I got to my black belt test, I was like, I'm going to make a kata that I'm going to wow people. Like I want to make this thing really, really good. And so I practiced that as much as I practiced everything else. So I'd come down here by myself in the dojo, and I'd have an hour and a half where I knew nobody was going to come in, so I'd stretch for like 20 minutes, half hour, and then I worked on my kata. And I worked on it forwards, backwards, every direction of the compass. I mean, I did that thing left and right, upside down, every possible way I could think of it. I would start it in the middle, go to the end, and then finish from the beginning.
Wow.
Like I did all sorts of stuff because I knew that I was going to be nervous, and I knew that I would probably forget stuff halfway through, and so I did things to try and confuse. I broke it up and smoothed the pieces around and did things to make it hard, to make me scratch my head and be like, oh, what did I miss? That kind of thing. So I was really, really focused on that. I don't think that I wowed anybody when I did it on my test, but I felt good about it. Like I was like, I put the effort in and I did everything I could do to make that the best I could make it. So, and then having other people do their kata and watch theirs helped a lot, because the only other katas I'd seen were the ones I'd skipped on YouTube watching karate tournaments or martial arts things, and the very few katas that I've seen people perform here.
Right.
I've seen a couple of other people do like some taekwondo forms. I've seen a couple of kempo forms and stuff like that, but it just didn't really it's just kind of playing pretend, really.
Right.
Anyway.
Well, the interesting thing about other forms or other martial arts styles is they have, from what I understand, they have these katas, that are, it's almost like a curriculum in itself, that they have to know certain katas.
Yeah.
And to me, that's very interesting. And me personally, I believe katas, I have to say that I believe katas have their place. They have their place in martial arts, and they are valuable.
Well, done right. They're
done
really
right.
neat.
Yeah. What's interesting about ours is that other forms, whenever, so you have, let's say another martial arts style has 10 katas you have to memorize, right? Yeah. To get from white belt to black belt or whatever, let's just generalize.
Some arbitrary number.
So, they, at some point, somebody made that kata. Like some grandmaster or somebody 100 years ago, some significant black belt or somebody in that art made that kata at some point. Like that kata didn't just pop into existence, like somebody made it. And so that's always interesting to know, like to me, to think like other arts, they have these katas that you're learning that somebody else learned 100 years, or somebody else made 100 years, 200 years ago. Our art, Wu Ying Dao, says, well, you make your own kata.
Yeah.
And which is another famously interesting thing to me, because when you tell people that we don't really focus, other martial artists from other styles, that we don't focus on kata as much, it's almost like confusing, or it's
it's
just so different to them.
Well, and martial arts is really deeply rooted in tradition.
Very much so.
And like that's like not wearing white to a wedding for a
yeah.
bride.
Exactly.
Or like or not wearing green on St. Patrick's Day. You just like people look at you weird. And it's cool. It's a break from tradition. And you look back on that stuff, and like you look at like Wing Chun.
Right.
Wing Chun, which we talked about in the last episode a little bit with Ip Man or Ip Man. That goes back hundreds of years. And so you have all these people hundreds of years ago, not before written word, that would be thousands of years ago probably. But I think that was a way to communicate with people, a way to show them the different techniques and different things. Like, so instead of like, here's this book, which you may not know how to read, we're going to do this interpretive dance,
like a form of storytelling,
or like this is, the first form is all the stuff you need to know for your
white belt. Yeah.
And so you look at it like as a teaching tool. I think that's kind of cool, but it's also like a display thing too.
Yeah.
So you have like it's a 2 or 3 pronged approach where you're like, okay, I'm going to show you this form, this kata, this series of moves, and then you'll learn the techniques to get your first belt, or so on and so forth. And then you use that and compete and do a kata at a tournament or whatever. And to me, like, I think it's beautiful when done correctly. I mean, there's some people that are incredibly talented. I don't see, and this is my own hang up, I don't see how you can judge that stuff. Like figure skating. Like you watch the Olympics and you see figure skating and they're doing all these jumps and moves and turns and stuff. People judge that. And I'm like, that's beautiful. How do you score that this person did this better than the next person? Obviously some people have more skill and more talent and they can perform those things better, but like, how do you quantify that? How do you put a number on that or a score?
Yeah, how do you score art? Because a kata is essentially, it's an art.
It's an art form.
It's an art form. Well, the first tournament that I went to as a red belt, where I was a judge, I sat down and I remember it was the gentleman's name is Hector. I don't remember his last name, but he has his own dojo. I see him at these tournaments every time.
Here in town?
Yeah, no, he has his own dojo. I want to say out of town, so not local, but within driving distance.
Okay.
But he was the head judge of the ring that I was assigned to when the first tournament I was a judge. Okay. And I sat down with him and he's like, all right, we're gonna, it was just like, okay, here we go. We're gonna judge katas. Judge forms. And I was like, Hector, like, I don't even know, I've done my kata one time at a tournament and I forgot it. I didn't tell him that, but I've done my kata one time in a tournament when I was a green belt. I don't know, like, how do you judge? And I won't forget this, but he said you judge it based on their spirit, based on their energy. Okay. And he said a couple other things, but I remember the spirit. And, somebody can throw a punch and it's just like, kia, or somebody's like, kia, and it's...
They're in...
Their spirit is
the intent, the enthusiasm, all of that stuff that
comes out in their performance. So it's like when you sit, like, and then I was like, and I remember from that tournament, I remember all of a sudden being able to see like people from different martial arts, different styles, and you see they come out and they perform, and you're like, okay, this person knows their form. Their spirit isn't as high as this other person who maybe doesn't know their form as well, but they're like really into it. Like they're
putting on a show.
And then this person over here, they know their form and their spirit's coming out. Like, and they're just like in it, and you can see that, like, being the judge, you can see, like, when I was judging the 12 and 13-year-olds, it was like, oh, okay, this person has more spirit, this person's a little bit, and it's not necessarily about speed. It could be, in my opinion. It's not, oh, did this person go through the kata super fast? It's not, it could be about speed, but it could not be. Like,
it could also be done slow.
It could be slow, but
methodical.
With some great spirit.
Yeah.
Methodical and just some great spirit.
So is it judged on like a 1 to 10?
Yeah, so normally what they do is, we agree beforehand. We're like, the 3 judges, usually led by the head judge, they said, okay, we're gonna so I'll use my group. So the 12 and 13-year-old category, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. We're gonna agree that the 12 and 13-year-old beginners category is gonna be from 6.00 to 6.99, and that's what we're gonna be operating in. That is the boundaries. So then when we have the 12 and 13-year-old intermediate group, they're going to be 7.00 to 7.99, and we're not going to judge lower than a 7.00, and we're not going to judge higher than a 7.99. And so you agree to, like, your boundaries as far as what,
and so they make it appropriate for the kids in their experience.
Yeah, in their experience. So, like, you wouldn't take beginner 5-year-olds that are doing their katas and be like, well, we're going to start at 9.00 to 9.99.
Okay.
Like, just that, you're just not going to do that. It's going to be based on their experience.
Okay.
And so,
that's interesting.
Yeah. Every tournament, all the tournaments that I've been to here locally, we've always done that. All the judges, I've had several different head judges that I've worked with, and that's what they do. That's how they do it. So it's predetermined. So anyways, all the kids go through and do their kata, and then, and I don't know exactly how it essentially is, each judge gives their score at the end of each person performing, whether it's a boy or girl performing, each judge gives their score, then you have the recorder that records it down, and they tally up the scores, and whoever got the most, is essentially the first, second, third, winner. So I haven't yet learned all the math of how the tournaments work out. Yeah. But yeah, no, it was a good experience, and we did the katas, and then for the 12 and 13-year-olds, and then we did the sparring. And you have your head judge, and sometimes you got to determine this ahead of time, but you've got the head judge, and you've got then the 2 assistant judges, but you've got to determine ahead of time, can the assistant judges call break when they see a point scored, or can only the center judge or the head judge call, okay, break? And so the judge I was working with, he was like, no, if you see something, you call it. Like, you call break, and then the head judge will then in turn call for point.
Yeah, okay.
And then you can call. But that was pretty cool, to see something like that. And I think more often than not, because the center judges are cool with the assistant judges calling a break and saying, whereas, like, here we kind of don't.
We rely on the center judge.
Judge. So
which is interesting, because you have to play to that, and like especially beginners don't really understand that. Like, sparring is one thing. If we're just out here sparring, throwing punches and kicks at each other, we're just punching each other, or kicking each other, whatever. But like when you try and do it, when you gamify it, when you put a score on it, I always tell people, especially beginners, like, you have to pay attention to where you are in relation to the judge. Mm-hmm. If your back is to the judge, they're not going to be able to see those straight punches to the belly that you're punching this person. You may be hitting them for all you're worth, and it hurts, but if they're not seeing the point, they're not going to call that. So you have to be aware of your position. It adds another dimension to the practice or the game, just like anything else. The people that are watching and that, though, are just as important as the two people that are participating.
Because that could carry over into self-defense,
Yeah, exactly.
You're in a self-defense situation, and you might have to position yourself so that a bystander sees what's
going on and making sure you're not the aggressor.
You're not the aggressor, so that can aid in that.
Yeah, for sure.
But just judging and the lower categories, it's like, okay, you can't have any contact to the face. To the side of the head, you can have maybe like you're supposed to pull your punches or maybe kiss contact. To the side of the face, side of the head. Body, it's supposed to be light contact. Light to medium contact. And you get in the higher ranks, then it becomes okay. Now you can do some pretty decent contact to the side of the head and the body, and still not supposed to do any contact to the face. And in each tournament, whoever's running it seems to be different. I've heard some tournaments, like the kidneys on the back for the higher ranks. So like
or valid target.
Yeah, the brown and black belts, like the kidneys on the back are a valid target.
It all depends on who's putting on the show.
What risk and liability do they want to have?
Yeah.
So, but scoring a point on somebody at the tournaments that I go to is defined as I can't remember the exact words, but it's essentially a fight-ending blow to a good target. A shot to a good target that would end a fight.
Okay.
Theoretically.
Okay.
So like a back fist to the body isn't exactly
not gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, if it's sold right and it's clean, maybe, but you really want to see something that's gonna end a fight.
Yeah.
Like a punch to the face with no contact, but that's pulled. That's like, oh, yep.
That would hurt.
Yeah. A front kick to somebody's, belly, stomach area. That has
potential to end something.
To end a fight.
So how many different styles of martial arts were there?
Gosh, I don't know. I know they had.
There was definitely Kenpo,
Shotokan,
Taekwondo.
I don't know. I don't know all the different styles. I mean, there's so many styles of martial arts, but I know Shotokan and Kenpo. And there was others, and it's just interesting to see everyone's different stance, and how people are and their different fighting styles. Our styles are very aggressive, like get out there and hit, cross that line and hit. Some of the other styles are maybe not as aggressive. They're more of a sit and wait, wait for the other style, the
other person to come in on you.
Yeah.
Huh.
So. But with each individual style, it's essentially like we said in the Ip Man said in the movie, it's not about style, it's about you. So it all boils down to you. You could have somebody who studies a real passive defensive style, but they could be really aggressive within that.
Yeah.
Style.
Well, it's all how you use your tools.
But it is absolutely a fantastic thing to see kids, boys and girls, get out there and compete.
Yeah.
And to show competition, and there's a clear winner and a clear not winner like for that match.
Yeah.
And I think it really builds character, whatever that means. It builds character, and it teaches kids, and adults to get out there and to really go for it.
Yeah.
I think, and you're going against, if you do a lot of tournaments, you're going to see some of the same people at other tournaments and whatnot. And I see a lot of the same people at these local tournaments.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you're going against people you've never seen before. You've never sparred against them. You're literally stepping out into the ring to spar against someone to score
points. Unknown.
It's in the total unknown. You've got to get a reading on your opponent, like
you have seconds.
when you're getting set up. Like
well, and you think about it like as a self-defense standpoint. That's what it would be in a self-defense situation. You don't know all of the details sometimes until after the fact.
So you've got to get a reading on somebody.
You're
or a try.
Yeah, and you better figure it out quick.
Yeah. So it was really cool, and just being a judge, and then I helped. We did the same judging for katas. It was the 14 and 15-year-olds. I think
okay.
14 and 15-year-old red, brown, and black belt categories.
Oh wow!
Yeah, you go through so many people, it gets hazy, as far as what you judged. But we did the red and brown belt categories, and then we had some under 18 black belt categories. And let me tell you, the red and brown and the black, so it's red and brown is its own category.
And then you have a
separate black belt. And man, you get into those categories, and the red and brown belt category I've heard referred to as the blood and guts category. Blood and guts.
Yeah.
Because those are the tough categories where you're no longer a beginner, intermediate, or advanced, but you're not a black belt. So you've they're the real tough categories because people are hitting hard, and maybe they don't have the precision yet that like a black belt should have or has or should have. But it's those stages where they're almost a black belt, but they're not quite. So it's like an in-between type thing between the beginner, intermediate, and advanced and the black belt. And then you've got the red and brown in the middle. So, those guys, the boys and girls, they were hitting hard, like really hard. And it seemed like there was some, I won't describe one school, but it seemed like there was one school that had some kids there. This was in the 12 and 13-year-old, back to the 12 and 13-year-old category, beginner. They were in the beginners, but they showed up and they looked like they were just there to fight. They didn't look like they were there to score points or to,
Really?
Yeah, and I don't want to describe what their uniforms look like to give it away, but there was a group of 5 of them. It was 5. And they were just there to throw punches. And like, they, and the head judge, I was thinking the same thing, and the head judge of my group, he calls us all together, while we're waiting for one of the matches to get set up, and he's like, I think these guys over here are just swinging for the fences. They don't care about points. They're just here to throw down. And I was thinking the same thing. And the other judge, Gunner, he was like, yeah, I agree. Like, they're not. So,
which is fine if that's what everybody's
agrees
to. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like you negotiate terms and then go against them. It's kind of. That's some dirty pool.
Yeah. So, then we went. So then back to the red and brown belt category. There were some people just swinging. I mean, they're really hitting.
Yeah.
We had to call contact a couple times. You get into the black belt category with the younger people, and one of our black belts,
competed.
Sensei Swope. He's 15. He took his test with you and I.
Is he 15 or 16?
No, I think he's 15.
Oh no, he just turned 16 like last week.
Well, then he was in the category that was the 14, 15.
Okay.
The under 18 black belt,
maybe,
I think is what it was.
I might be wrong.
But he was in the category.
Okay.
He was in the category that we were judging. Well, he ended up winning. He ended up winning first place in the under 18 black belt category, which was I think the 14, 15, 16.
He's really turned into to a monster.
Monster. I mean, he's, what is he, like 6 feet tall, like
Yeah,
already,
yeah.
and but he had the person he went up against was a real brawler that he went, and this individual from another dojo would just drop his head and just charge in like a street fighter and just start swinging for the fences. And Sensei Swope, David, he kept that guy at arm's length, and he anytime that guy came in, I mean, he just swung at. He hit him, and he ended up winning, and his hits were clean. But everybody was watching that match. I mean, a lot of people in the gymnasium were watching this match between Sensei Swope and this other guy who would just drop his head and just come swinging in like
a freight train.
Just a freight train, yeah. And but David kept him at arm's distance and wouldn't let him. He played his game, didn't let the guy do his.
Yeah. He is a real interesting kid. I love that kid. He's really good. He used to be so meek and mild. Like, he's been in the advanced group because of his rank for a few years now. But like, I remember working with him and stuff, and it was like Play-Doh. Very just soft, just like very malleable, And then he hit, I don't know, he must have hit 14 or 15 years old. And I remember doing a test with him, and it was like, holy cow, what did you eat this morning? Like, what happened? There was some switch that got flipped, and it was like, I am no longer this kid that you're going to just like toss around. Like, there is something that you have to deal with, And
I think that may have been like our advanced brown belt test.
Yeah.
I think because we all tested, you, me, and him.
And...
Or maybe it was
advanced red belt. I don't remember. Yeah. Somewhere in there a couple of years ago, right before COVID, it was just like this whole nother animal. It reminded me of, like, have you ever tried to catch a stray cat?
Yes.
You're gonna get jacked up.
Yeah.
Like you might hang on to it for a second, but you're gonna probably be bleeding when you're done.
Yep.
It was like that. I was just like, holy cow, what
happened?
What happened to you? Like, did you eat your Wheaties this morning? Like, what the heck happened? He had
extra Wheaties.
Yeah, and he's turned into quite the little fighter. I mean, he's not little; he's taller than I am. He's a big kid, but he's just like, there's something to contend with,
right?
It's not like I'm not just gonna blow through this guy. He's got some. There is something to deal with here, and if you're not careful, you're going to eat a foot or a fist in the face. And it's so funny because he almost has no expression. Like, I always try and make him smile or laugh, and if I can get a smile out of him, I can kind of mess with his head.
Yeah.
But he has like no, like he's
stoic.
So stoic. It's not. I'm like.
When he's about 85 years old with the beard, he'll be a perfect older,
exactly
stoic martial arts teacher.
Yeah, exactly. But it's so funny. Like, it's just, 15, 16-year-old kid. You're like, you're a kid, dude. You're supposed to be goofy and like, laughing and joking. He's just like on the job. I've got this task to do, and like, we're going to do it. Very laser-like focus.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's awesome to see him. Like,
to see that change.
Yeah. And it's a good positive influence on a lot of kids here.
Yeah, and I definitely think that because he has done... He's done a bunch of tournaments.
He's been doing this since he was like 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah. So I think you can really see that if a kid, whether it's a boy or girl, was doing competition, like martial arts competition, from that age.
Yeah.
He just gets out there and he's like, there's no, it's like an animal that was born in the water that's just now swimming in the water. Like
it's just natural.
It's just natural. And he was just out there and I think that I really firmly believe that You know, I think that if kids or people supplemented what other sports activities or any activity in general, but let's just use sports activities as an example. If kids supplemented their sports activities, like say they played football or basketball, soccer, whatever, if they supplemented that with martial arts, because you are literally going into a one-on-one combat point system, like whether it's sparring or whether it's, competing in a tournament, if a kid does that, that will transition into whatever sport they're competing in as well on a team level.
Yeah.
Whereas you're competing in a karate tournament one-on-one, now you're competing in a football game on a team against team. And I firmly believe that'll carry over and will just really make it well-rounded, for an individual. And,
for sure. There's something to be said to go up in front, go up against somebody who's trying to punch you or kick you. That's one thing.
That's one thing.
And that's nerve-wracking enough. But to do that when other people are watching, and that's a challenge. That's a serious challenge.
Because my match that I did in this last tournament, I got. So I'm 36 right now. I got put in with the.
Were you the youngest guy in your group?
I was the youngest. I was put in the 35 and over black belt category, and there was 3 of us. The guy that I got matched up with at the last tournament I went to in January, he was the center judge, or he was one of the judges in my ring. We kind of swapped out who was the center judge and who was the side judge.
Okay.
I was the center judge. So I'm talking about the tournament in January. I was the center judge for the sparring for the 9-year-olds, and then I was
you rotated.
We rotated the center judge.
That's kind of stressful.
Yeah. So this guy was one of the side judges, but then also did the center judging for the adults that we judged, the beginner, intermediate, and advanced that we judged in January. This guy's name was Dean. So now this tournament rolls around, and him and I get paired up to spar.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, "Hey, how's it going? What was your name again?" And he told me, and he's like, "What was your name again?" And so then we sparred. Well, he just cleaned my. I mean, he worked me out. He was 53 years old. I'm 36, and he scored 3 points. Like boom, boom, boom. I didn't score a single point. So I didn't.
Wow.
And he scored 3 points. I mean, the match went for like maybe 30 seconds. Like it was a real quick match. And but like you said, to get out, it's one thing to spar someone that's trying to punch you, but then to get it out in front of people
that are watching. Everybody's watching the black belt tournament.
Yeah, and the people that are watching, and then to lose in front of everyone.
But you did that in spite of everyone. And you learn.
Yeah. Oh, it was a great. Yeah, it was good.
There's a guy that I really like. There's 2 quotes that I really, really like. Well, the first one, this guy's like a salesman guy, and I sell stuff. I've been selling things for a long time. Sell dental supplies. That's my number one job that I do. It's my real job that pays the bills. But I've sold houses. I've sold shoes. I've done all sorts of stuff. It sells, and so you kind of just like anything else, any other profession or whatever. There's people that people follow. Whether it's movies. Sports, you have the leaders of the industry,
Right.
And there's this guy that talks about losing, and losing to him is not, what's his thing? What's he say? You're not losing, you're learning with the right attitude. If you have the right attitude about anything, even if you lose, you can still learn, right? And so he's like, he always tells people you should learn how to love losing.
Really?
Yeah. He goes, I love to lose because when I lose, I'm going to learn how to do it better. And if I lose again the next time, I'm going to learn that much more. He goes, I'll lose 100 times in a row just so I can get a little bit better and learn. And once I do learn whatever it is I'm trying to learn, look out. And that stuck with me for a long time because it just makes sense. Like, you know, with the right attitude, it might be frustrating. You know, he's like, I'm not making any excuses. It might suck, and it's probably gonna suck, but embrace that and like figure out what you're doing wrong so you don't repeat it. You know, and so that I really dig that. And then the other one is something about the man in the ring, and I can't remember who. There's a famous quote, and it's like a poem is not the right word, but it's like a saying this guy wrote, and I want to say it's Roosevelt wrote it, about the man in the ring and how he may be dirty and bloodied and beaten, but he still did more than the person outside the ring cheering or booing him or whatever. It's really cool. Let's see if I can find it.
Yeah, I mean that was essentially my attitude was, hey, all that matters is that you step into the ring. And if you do step into the ring, you want to win, or you're aiming to win.
Exactly.
But that you step into the ring. And so, yeah, I was saying like to do that and to step into the ring, to go against someone and then to lose is actually a really good learning experience.
Yeah.
It really is, because then you have nothing to hide. You went out there and
you did it versus the person sitting there
that didn't do
anything.
Yeah, so no, it's definitely been, and like I said, I'm 36. So I don't know how much longer I'm really going to be able to, compete. I guess probably into your 60s.
Well, some people do.
But at least get the handful of times I can out.
Yeah.
While I'm younger, to say I did it.
So it's called The Man in the Arena.
Okay.
By Theodore Roosevelt. And it says, it is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat. Pop-up. The pop-up screwed me up. Whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of the high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat.
Yeah, okay.
I
have heard that.
Yeah, it's really cool. There's tons of quotes about boxing and stuff, and about people going up and it takes a brave person to put yourself out in front of people and compete, or even perform or do anything. Standing up on stage, some people are just terrified to stand up in front of people and talk. Just talk. Something everybody does on this planet, practically.
But now you
put up in front of an audience, and some people are petrified of it. So to do that and actually compete and have people judge you for how you do against another person, that's an act of bravery, man. That's cool. I wasn't able to do it.
Next time.
Next time. Next time. I had some issues to deal with, cars breaking down and sick family members.
Next time. Yeah, because when I started going to these tournaments, I just originally started because I didn't have the rank. I originally just started as competing. In sparring.
Yeah.
And did the kata twice. The kata competition, but now it's moved on to, I would go to those. So originally I would go to those tournaments and it would be just, okay, I am here to compete. But now it's, I'm here to be a judge, then to compete when they get around to my category. And so it's been a nice transition, into that. And it's really, the cool thing about it is you're going to a you're going to a tournament where everyone who's competing is a martial artist, or should be a martial artist, and you get, we all have the same thing in common, in that we like, we throwing kicks and punches and doing martial arts. But, each individual school and each dojo and each teacher, they kind of have their own way of doing things, right? Like how they run a school and their own drills. And it's really cool to see that all come together at a tournament when you're all, you're coming together collectively at a tournament to do the same thing and to experience what another style offers or another martial arts instructor offers, and we're all in the same passion of doing martial arts, but it's just like the different perspectives,
different thought pattern, or different plan of action. And just how people show up and just seeing how different people move when they're sparring or they do kata. It's really interesting. It's really good to expose oneself to other viewpoints. Yeah.
Even if you don't agree with that viewpoint, but at least
learn the merits.
Yeah, you learn the merits. You're exposing yourself to it because that's what this world's all about, is getting out there and exposing ourselves and measuring our skill against other people with different styles.
You know who Harinder Singh is?
Yes.
Okay, you trained with him.
I did.
At
martial arts super
show.
I did like an hour class with a group class with him.
Okay, I'm really looking forward to that. I'm going in July, and I'm going to take a course from him. So I'm really, really interested in to see that. He does the Black Belt podcast for Black Belt Magazine and Century. And he was interviewing a guy, and I can't remember his name right now, and I want to say it's like episode number 5 or 6. He's interviewed a few people that are really, really eye-opening. Different instructors or school owners, professional fighters, the whole gamut of different people. But anyway, this guy he was interviewing has a fairly famous school, I guess. It's taught. He teaches a traditional Kempo karate, but he also teaches MMA, and he's coached some famous fighters. One of the guys that not Quentin Jackson, but I can picture his face, but I can't think of his name. Anyway, he was talking about his teacher versus how he runs things, and this is all according to him. I have no facts on this, but according to this guy, his teacher was a felon and taught you beat people up and this is what you do and blah blah blah, and was very. I almost turned it off when he started talking about it because it just sounded like a macho tough guy kind of thing. But the more I listened to it, the more I realized he realized at a pretty young age that this is not the way to do things. I don't want, this guy's got some valuable stuff and it's valid information. It's just brought in a way that I don't like. It's not the right avenue. And it made me realize a couple of things. One, as a person who is teaching, you have a lot of power. Like, you have influence on the person you're giving this information to. And you got to be careful with that, because even if they misunderstand the way you're bringing it to them, that they could go off, they can go off in left field, and it might be really hard to bring that back, you know? So intent matters, but also, like, the kind of person you're helping that person to become. Like, you're going to turn them into an a-hole, you're going to turn them into a bully or a jerk, and like, is that really what we need more in the world of? There's plenty of them, so it was really interesting, and that reminded me of, you were talking a little bit back about some of the participants of the tournament, how they were just wanting to, like, it looked like they just wanted to fight.
They were just there
They
to
weren't
fight.
there to compete. They weren't there to, like, they didn't have any kind of honor. It was just like, hey, I'm going to punch these people as hard as I can, or kick these people as hard as I can. There are different roads to travel there. And all of those. Some of those roads aren't pretty. Some of them are great. You gotta pick your path, I guess. I was talking to Thomas today, my 7-year-old. Our power got turned off this morning at 7:00 this morning. So I have a whole bunch of stuff to do, and then the power goes off.
Oh, no.
And it was off all day long. It got turned on right before I left to come here. So we just made a day of it today. We went to Turtle Bay, went out to breakfast. I just tried to keep the kids busy, because it was like, we could sit in the house and stare at each other, or we could go do something. So I tried to get them doing stuff. And Tom really wasn't having much of it today, and so we were just trying to be fun and have a good time. But you saw a couple homeless people, and it's like, that guy right there. I go, if you ever find yourself as an adult riding a child's bicycle down the highway, you've probably not made good life decisions. And I don't mean that in an offensive way to anybody. You never know what that guy's story was, but you probably didn't make very good life decisions. And then, like, this brand new truck passes us with an RV attached to it, trailer. And I'm like, that guy is probably happy with the choices he's made in life, And Tom was like, well, that guy's probably got his feelings hurt because you said that. I'm like, well, he didn't hear me, son. Didn't tell him that. He's talking about the guy on the bike. I'm like, that guy didn't hear me. I promise you that. Second of all, that wasn't very nice of me to say that, but I'm using this as a learning tool for you. Like, look at the roads you can take.
Yeah.
Look at the choices you can make. Anyway, I don't know. I just thought of that as we were talking about martial arts and the different things, influences, and we don't realize, as somebody who teaches classes, or even or private lessons, or daily interactions with people, you have influence. How do you want that to be? Have you ever worked? You've worked minimum wage crap jobs.
Oh, yeah.
I've never worked fast food, but I've worked lowly retail jobs. I've worked in grocery stores. I sold shoes. I sold real estate. Sold dental supplies. The service industry, people get crapped on.
Yeah, they do.
And most of the time, it has nothing to do with how that person is performing. It's just the fact that they're in the service position.
Yeah, that goes for food and retail.
Everything. Yeah.
Services.
And I don't understand the way people treat others in those positions. Like, that guy didn't deserve that. What kind of person are you showing how you know, like, do you want people to perceive you like this jerk?
Yeah.
You know, like, do you really need that in the world? Like, I don't know. I'm trying to bring this all back down to what we were talking about, but like,
no, you're making a good point.
yeah, but like, I look at like teachers, educators, instructors, like, I just don't see, like, why would you want that kind of a thing broadcast into the world if you're gonna like teach people like just go fight this guy, like what are you trying to accomplish? Like, I don't get that mindset. Like here we're pretty welcoming, we're pretty open, we're we always 3 rules of self-defense. We talk about defending yourself and not starting fights and not being the instigator and stuff, and like that's an honorable position to be in. That's like that's a good thing, right?
Yes,
right?
it is.
We're not like, just hit the guy, or like, we're gonna go to this tournament and they're gonna score points, but we're just gonna beat these guys up. Like, who wants their kid to learn that?
Right.
That I don't get, and I don't think that anybody would. I don't think anybody would start out that way, right? Like, how do you get to that?
I think some of it.
Is it a competitive thing?
I mean, maybe, but I think me personally, at the root of something like that is somebody experienced some pain.
Yeah.
At some point, so they just want to pass it on. And that's their way of dealing with it.
That seems to be a natural reaction in children, though.
They were pained, and maybe the teacher. We're just talking in general. It could be a teacher of anything, but let's just say martial arts. A martial arts teacher, experienced some pain at some point in their life, so they're like, well, this is how you deal with pain, is you just dish it out.
Yeah.
And so now they're teaching that concept to young children that are students who didn't have that pain that instructor
was inflicted
onto. And so they're just learning a one-dimensional view of, this is what you do, is like you go and you
dominate
and punch somebody, and you make,
who knows? But like, I don't know. Part of me, when I see stuff like that, part of me just wants to be like, okay, who hurt you? Like,
exactly.
What you're hurting from something.
Like, were you picked on? And now you're lashing out and like, nope, like I got.
This is not going to end well. This doesn't make you feel better or grow as a human being.
Yeah. And that's the sad reality of this world we live in, is that type of stuff is never going to be fixed. That there's always going to be people like that.
Unfortunately,
from the beginning of history until the end of history, we've had those types of people. They're going to be there, and that's kind of why else then do we study martial arts?
In case you have to deal with somebody like that.
Yeah, why else do we? Because there's always going to be somebody who has pain, and then they channel that into bad decisions, whether that's being a criminal or wanting to do something, harm someone or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the nature of what we study, is to protect against that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's unfortunate to see those types of things, because then these kids, they, or it doesn't even have to be a kid, it could be an adult, but, a flawed teacher. I mean, everyone's flawed, but I'm just saying, like, a flawed teacher who is teaching from a place of pain then passes on their way of dealing with that pain to somebody who never experienced that pain, and it's a very incomplete version of like why that is dealt with that way for the students.
Well, and I've heard of I've watched a couple of things and heard a couple of things like old school martial arts. Like you look at tournaments on YouTube from the 60s and 70s. Those guys were beating the crud out of each other.
Yeah.
And some of the interviews I've seen were they talk about teaching methods and stuff. And one guy was on there and was like, well, I just beat you up until you learn how to deal with it. And learn, here's the moves, and now I'm going to beat you up and you'll figure it out or you'll quit. And I wonder if that's probably on one hand a fairly good way to teach somebody.
That's one way.
Yeah, no, you don't block that way. That's why you ate this fist.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I wonder if that really damages people in a way.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not saying that you should teach people with kid gloves and handle them and okay, no, that's not how we do it, Johnny. Yeah, but
that's a really good point.
But there's got to be a little bit of a balance. I shouldn't just punch you in the face until you figure out how to block.
How to block, yeah.
Or move your head,
because the damage is still getting
the damage
done.
is still there, and I don't know. But at the same time, I don't want to be all lovey-dovey. There's a curve. There's a balance there. You have to. Fine, yeah, and people learn differently, but I don't know. I think we kind of went off the rails there a little bit. So.
No. That really ties into because going to tournaments. I have seen those types of individuals at tournaments that are just there just to swing.
Yeah.
And. You like I said, you don't know who you're dealing with at these tournaments. I mean, maybe you've seen some of these people before, but a lot of new faces.
They're open. Anybody could come.
Can come, and you don't know what you're dealing with. So you gotta be prepared. I mean, there was, even the tournament I did, the last tournament I judged at in January. When we had the beginning, intermediate, and advanced adult groups, we had 20-some people, 25 people in those three categories.
That's
and
size.
We had those adults, they were swinging hard.
Yeah.
I mean, they were swinging really, really hard. And it's if you're going to step out this... We don't want a martial arts tournament. A martial arts tournament's not MMA. It's not supposed to be MMA, right?
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be
and it's
MMA.
not supposed to be a boxing match.
It's not supposed to be a boxing match. It's people come out and they showcase their skills and score points on each other. It's a way of putting your skills to the test and showcase using your moves.
Yeah, I'm not trying to knock you out or kill you. You're just trying to score a point.
And it's competition. But some people come out and they, most of the people come out and they're okay, that's what we're gonna do, and we're gonna try to learn and score some points and have fun and make friends. And some people are just nope, I'm coming just to hit.
Yeah.
And that's the reality. Is it's well, if you're gonna, what's the saying? If you're gonna go swimming, there's always sharks or something.
Yeah.
One of those sayings. You're gonna go to a martial arts tournament, you're gonna might run in with one of those people. Get matched up with them, and then how you deal with that, how you manage your emotions.
Yeah.
Hopefully the judges will stop a match or call contact, and sometimes that doesn't always happen.
Yeah. Well, and everybody's a volunteer there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the other thing that people seem to forget too. Is we're all doing the best we can. We're just volunteering. I remember going to a match, the first tournament I ever went to. Cole, my middle son, wanted to do the tournament. Tom was a baby. And okay, we'll sign you up for a tournament and stuff. And I'm standing there in the ring. I wasn't volunteering or anything. It was just watching. And he did the tournament. But while the tournament's going on, there's tons of people around, walking in and out and stuff. And I overheard what I thought were parents, but it was a parent and some other dude who was just stacked, muscles on muscles on muscles. And They're like, oh, I didn't know you come to these things. He's like, I don't normally come. And the other parent guy is like, oh, well, what are you doing? He's like, I'm checking out the competition, like it's some professional kickboxing match or something, And I'm like, dude, there's a bunch of 10-year-olds here, or 5-year-olds. And there's some adults, don't get me wrong, but like, they're not really, I mean, they're going to compete for a trophy. We're not talking about like, a pot of money here, I was just like, I think you're in the wrong place, guy, like, what are we, and I've never, and he actually opened a school, and then it closed shortly after COVID, or during COVID, I think, but, the point is, it wasn't around for very long, and I think that there were two different trains of thought going on there, like, he wanted to compete, and like...
This was at a tournament?
This was at a tournament. This guy was walking around the tournament and just, like, kind of checking stuff out. The competition, apparently. And the other guy, I don't know who any of these people were, might have been another parent. He was just dressed in regular clothes, and I think he recognized this guy from somewhere, and they were on a first name basis, but I don't know anything other than that. So the other guy was a parent, and he was watching children, so he had his own kids there, I'm assuming. But this other guy, I think he was a school owner, or was going to be a school owner. And then it was just kind of a funny interaction, and like, you can tell, like, he was very physically strong. That was very apparent. But it was just like this whole different thought. Like, you could see all these other people here were there for the kids, were there to teach the kids, there to compete, of course. But like, this guy looked like he kind of like was walking around like he was almost looking for a fight, kind of thing.
but he was, like, quote, looking for a competition.
Yeah. And and I was just like, I didn't say anything. I didn't want to say anything because he could have probably ripped my arms off. But it was just like, I don't know that this is the place for you, buddy. Like, I don't know. You might want to look somewhere else, And there's a place for those kinds of people, I'm sure. But it was just
not there.
It was just funny. It was just kind of like, oh, okay, all right. It's like when I got our kids in here. Before that, there was a place next door where I worked, and it was an MMA gym, and there were guys like that there. And I walked in there one day, and I'm like, hey, looking to see what you guys do and how much you charge, and thinking about getting my kids in there. And the guy just flat out told me, he's like, I don't teach kids. I was like, okay. And he's like, no, dude, you don't want me to bring your kids in here. I beat people up in here. Just like that, like verbatim. I beat people up in here. And I'm all, thank you for telling me. I appreciate that, because I don't want my kids anywhere near you. But it was like he was looking for fighters to teach MMA to go and fight in a cage. Okay, cool. Like, he didn't beat around the bush. It was direct, straightforward. This is what I'm doing, and I don't want any part of your stuff. Like, cool, no problem. I get it. And I just walked out the door. Like, well, I ain't going there. But he wouldn't have fit in into martial arts tournament either. He would fit in where he was, in a cage. Like, that's what he wanted to do. No disrespect, but like, this dude walking around the tournament, he needed to go find a cage. Like, I think he was looking for that and didn't find it there, thankfully. But I don't know.
Some interesting characters that are out there, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Speaking of interesting characters, see any interesting characters lately? Movies, podcasts, YouTube channels?
I haven't. I'm no.
Oh,
I haven't. Just the last movie we watched, we talked about
Ip Man.
Ip Man. Yeah.
Ip Man's awesome.
Yeah. Gonna get back into those.
Yeah. I got one. Hard to Hurt is a YouTube channel on YouTube. Really interesting guy. He has a martial arts MMA gym. Very practical, very good lessons. He's got short, anywhere from 5 to 10 minute long videos. He does longer form videos too, but he talks about just little training techniques and things. Very, very cool. Very informative.
Hard to Hurt.
Hard to Hurt. Yeah. Bald guy, probably in his late 30s, early 40s. Really got some interesting stuff. Just little technique stuff and talking about different things that people do and how to, like, just everything from like breathing, like controlling your breathing to when you're working drills. The thing that he says everyone does, like you do a drill, like let's say you work combinations 1, 2, 3, people like reset, they take a breath, they put their hands down. He's like, what's that teaching you? Teaches you to like just do what you need to do so you can take your break, right? And he talks about how to like deal with that. Check it out, it's pretty cool.
Hard to Hurt.
Yeah, Hard to Hurt. We've been at it for a little while. Hour and 15 minutes, hour and 16 minutes.
I thought about one.
Okay,
that,
go for it.
The new show that came out, the new Star Wars show called Obi-Wan Kenobi.
That was a pretty good show. I watched the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, so we're going to talk possible spoilers.
Possible spoiler alert.
So if you have not seen the Obi-Wan show, the first 2 episodes,
deal with it.
Deal with it, yeah, or don't listen from here on out. But yeah, when I was younger, growing up, I saw the Star Wars prequel movies, right? Mm-hmm. And episodes 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
And they came out when I was a teenager. And first one was when I was 13, and then the last one was when I was 19. So they're kind of a big influence in that area. But one of the things I was always fascinated by is the Jedi.
Uh-huh.
As a kid, I wasn't so much into the Jedi thing. I like the in Star Wars the spaceships and the space battles.
Yeah.
And that and the blaster fights,
Yeah.
But when I got into my teens and saw the prequels, I was like, oh, these Jedi are actually kind of.
They have a code of conduct.
Yeah, they're really kind of cool, and so one of the things I've always is that, like, within the Star Wars universe, is the Jedi are those warriors, right? They're the peace ambassadors and protectors. And,
yeah.
They can be diplomats. They kind of take on a variety of roles, but they also have their lightsaber. And they use the Force, and they're essentially warriors. And George Lucas based them off, samurai.
Yeah.
Samurai, in Japan, which is pretty cool. But
and also Old West gunslingers.
Old West gunslingers, yeah. And so in the new Obi-Wan series, it's interesting because when you see Obi-Wan get into these fights, like the first time we actually see him fight, it's like hand-to-hand combat, right?
Yeah.
In episode 2. And it's in the hallway against 2 other people.
Yeah.
In the second episode 2 of the series, is what I'm saying. And you can kind of tell, he's this Jedi that's been in hiding for 10 years, on Tatooine. And he hasn't been training for 10 years, right?
And he's like kind of rusty.
He's really rusty.
Yeah.
He's really rusty, and he's throwing people down, and he hurts his hand when he throws someone down, and he's not.
He kind of forgets how to use the Force.
Yeah, and he has to figure out how to use the Force, and it's interesting. Like that part just spoke to me because in the past, when I was talking about doing some filmmaking, and I came back and you were an advanced blue belt, and then it was that was the time frame where you actually lapped me. Like I was ahead in belts, and then you were behind but catching up, And then I took several months, like 6 months, where I only came in maybe like 6 times in 6 months because I was so busy doing this series I was working on. And then you lapped me. And then at one time I came in and I was like, oh man, Dustin, like,
I know, I was like, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember walking in and seeing you teach some kid, it was probably one of your sons, and you had your advanced blue belt on with your blue and purple. But the point is, well, you lapped me. But then we tested for black belt together. Okay, so I caught up. But the point is in those 6 months, when I took them off, man, and you come back and you're like going
at it. Knock the rust off.
Oh yeah, I was rusty, and like even as just a beginner still, not even an intermediate student, but I find that if I take, a week or 2 weeks off now as a black belt, I really start seeing like, that edge gets dull.
Well, yeah,
quick.
For sure. I took a week off here right before the tournament. I took a week off because I had all sorts of stuff going on. And it wasn't my choice. That's what had to happen. I had priorities that I had to take care of. And coming back, it was like, oh, crap. I hadn't stretched. I hadn't been exercising as much as I'd like to be. Still not exercising as much as I'd like to be. But it just, like, I could tell my kicks weren't as high as they needed to be.
Your stamina is not as...
Well, your stamina takes a hit. And then also, like, I just wasn't on the ball as much. And, like, I couldn't see things the way I would normally see them if I was training consistently like I normally am. And those things add up. They make a difference. For sure, But no, that show is so good. I really, of the series, the multi-part series, that I think if it goes on the same trajectory it has been with the first 2 episodes, I think it's going to be really good. I like the dynamic of, like, he has this desire to help people in need, like a Jedi's supposed to, but he's like hiding, and so he can't help them. And then, like, there's the younger Jedi that he runs into that is, like, helping people and is like, why aren't you helping me? And it's like, dude, we're supposed to be hiding. Like, there's people after us, that kind of thing. And then he ends up. Yeah, it's a pretty good show.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a nice. It's not like cookie cutter, and it's not super predictable.
No.
Which I kind of liked. I like stuff like that. I don't like when I can call out when I'm watching a show and be like, oh, this guy's going to die.
Yeah.
That guy's going to betray his friend. And this guy here is going to be the real... I don't like that. I want to be surprised. And like, oh, I've seen this story before. That's boring to me.
Yeah.
So it took some left turns that I wasn't expecting. So it was cool.
Yeah, I mean, like, when we first meet Obi-Wan, he's literally like, I mean, when we first meet him, he's working, cutting up meat, in that, that harvesting meat from the sand dragon or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And one of the first things we do is we see him steal a piece of meat.
Yeah.
Like, it's totally not what a Jedi would do. He's wrapping it up to feed his animal.
Is it to feed his animal?
Yeah, that's what he feeds. He feeds that animal that he rides.
Oh, okay.
And then shortly after he wraps that piece of meat up and puts it in his shirt, he kind of like looks around, to see if anybody's watching. And then there's another guy in line when they're doing like their time cards, checking out.
Yeah.
And the guy's like, wait, I only got half my hours were counted. And the guy doing the time cards,
or whatever.
The foreman says, you're lucky, that's what you're getting, or just keep moving, that's what you're going to get. And you can see Obi-Wan, he wants to say something like, hey, like, give him his hours, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
And so, like, here we see this Jedi that's stealing stuff and not speaking up when he should.
He's supposed to be the good guy.
The good guy, and he's not being what a Jedi is, and he's hiding in who he is, but he has to for survival. but it's still the same thing. And then when that other Jedi finds him, and basically says,
admonishing him for not helping.
Yeah, he's like, you're the great Jedi Obi-Wan. What are you doing? And Obi-Wan's, basically says, stay hidden and
you should get the hell out of here. Basically.
And the guy looks at him and he goes, "What happened to you?" And I really felt that, because I think that happens to a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
That happens to a lot of people when you see people like you talked about that homeless guy on the bicycle riding that kid's bike. I don't think he chose.
He didn't want to end up there for sure.
He didn't want to, and so it's almost like if that homeless gentleman, if one of his childhood friends or teenage friends was to see him, they'd probably say the same thing. Like, what happened to you?
What? Yeah.
What happened to you?
Wow.
And so. No, but I just love that because you could apply that to all walks of life and any people whenever they have a life trajectory change. They have their life is going one way and then the trajectory, and it's like, well, Obi-Wan's was now that he's a Jedi that's getting hunted, and his former student is now a Dark Lord of the Sith.
Yeah.
So there's all that. That's pretty heavy stuff stacked on Obi-Wan. But yeah, no, that just what spoke to me was that he was out of training with the Force, with the hand-to-hand combat, and as of episode 2, we still haven't seen him use his lightsaber.
No.
So that'll be interesting to see how he uses that, how he wields that thing. And he even buried it in the sand. And he had
he's supposed to hide everything, I'm sure.
Supposed to hide it.
Come and kill him. It's kind of like the. You ever seen the Seven Samurai?
Years ago.
Old black and white film.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that one and
that was a big influence.
Yeah. There's another samurai movie I can't think of, but it's like this great samurai falls and he becomes a Ronin.
Oh.
And he's like. He's just kind of like not doing any of the samurai stuff that he's supposed to do because of something that happened, some tragic event. His friend died or something. And so he's just kind of like, almost like a homeless guy, just kind of wandering around. And somebody confronts him like that and was like, hey, how come you're, what happened to you? Why aren't you doing this? You're supposed to be helping people. And like, instead, we're getting attacked by bandits and you're like, what are you doing? And something happens, and he has to kind of like confront his demons and like kind of overcome something, and then he becomes the great samurai again and goes and saves people and does all this stuff. I can't remember the name of that movie.
Yeah, what movie is that? That sounds pretty good.
It's the same trope. It's the hero's journey kind of thing.
But that's something that's always in the back of my mind. You take time off from martial arts, and and that's one thing. I guess I'll end my part on this with the tournament is I really noticed that when I went into spar at the tournament, this last tournament, and I lost 0-3. And leading up to the tournament, I really felt like I personally wasn't as prepared as I could have been for the tournament.
Like not on the game.
I just wasn't on the game mentally and physically. I wasn't on the game, and that really affected that. And so I think you really have to be physically and mentally on the game, in the zone to go compete. And it's like Sensei says, if you're going to go compete, well then you're aiming to win.
Yeah, don't go to the tournament just to show up. Yeah, you want to.
And I think that what I want to do next for the next tournament is be more personally prepared, just more physically and mentally. And I think that played a part in it too. So the physical and the mental game. So yeah, that would be what I would say. Like, be prepared. When you go to a tournament.
Yeah. Well, just like anything else, you're going to do something. You need to do it.
Yeah.
You need to be there, be present, be ready to go, and do it.
Well, I think I agree, and I think that this tournament, I think I felt like I was gonna phone it in just kind of phone it in, like, oh, I'll show up and I'll do some sparring. And then it was like, no, I wasn't as ready as I should have taken it on to me to be.
Yeah.
I should have taken it on to be more ready. But again, also too, it could be said, well, it's a black belt category. It's a whole nother level.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Those guys don't play around. Or gals.
Or gals. Guys or gals.
Anyway, with that being said, I think we need to finish this up. I need to go home and eat some dinner. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for all your support. Reach out to us on Gmail at theformlesspod@gmail.com. We're on Twitter at formless_the, and we're at the dojo 3-4 nights a week sometimes. Come down here and say hi. If you want us on your podcast, reach out. If you want to be a guest on our podcast, reach out. Thank you again for listening, and stay tuned for some more updates. We've been talking about we have a YouTube channel set up. There's nothing on it yet, but we're going to potentially get something on there going, and maybe a contest, maybe a t-shirt or two. So
send us your questions too.
Yeah. We've gotten a few questions from people, a few suggestions. All of that has been extremely helpful. It allows us to keep doing this and talking and making this go. It has been slow, steady growth, which is perfect. It's just the way I want it. It allows us time to learn and get our footing, and we're coming for you. So keep listening, keep doing it, and let us know how it goes.
Thank you.
Thank you.